The sharp voice of Brenda Whitmore tore across the calm morning air. "Get away from there. That's private property." She was shouting at a man in army fatigues, seated on a wooden dock with a fishing pole in hand. The man didn't even turn to acknowledge her. His line cut through the glassy surface of Clearwater Lake, as calm as his own voice when he finally replied, "Ma'am, this is my cabin." His name was Darius Mitchell. The smell of diesel from Brenda's idling speedboat, mixed with the bitter aroma of the coffee steaming beside him. Behind Brenda, her teenage son Kyle hovered awkwardly, clearly embarrassed. "Bullshit? I'm calling 911 right now," Brenda snapped, pulling her phone out like a weapon. 20 minutes later, gravel crunched under the wheels of a police cruiser. Officer Johnson emerged, hand hovering near his holstered sidearm. "Sir, step away." From the dock, the officer barked. But then his eyes froze on the brass plate attached to Darius's tackle box. "Major General D. Mitchell, U.S. Army." Johnson's expression drained of color. He snapped to attention and delivered a salute crisp enough to echo. "Yes, Major General." Then, turning toward Brenda, he added, "Ma'am, you just called the cops on a decorated war hero at his own property." Her jaw dropped, flapping. Silently, like a fish gasping for air, Darius had driven the same gravel road in a beat-up U-Haul. 30 years of service for combat deployments, a bronze star behind him, and only one destination in mind: his grandfather's old cabin. The place waited like an old friend. The cedar shingles had faded to gray, and the air inside carried the musty scent of pine walls soaked with decades of pipe tobacco. For Darius, it was sanctuary. His wife Sarah had passed 2 years earlier, and he had no children, no family. Left, just memories. The cabin represented healing, stability, a final posting after a lifetime of duty. That first week, he threw himself into work. He replaced rotted dock planks, painted the exterior the same forest green his grandfather had chosen in 1944, and felt a rhythm of peace returning until she arrived. Brenda Whitmore appeared on his porch like a realtor advertisement come alive. Polished blonde bob, designer lake clothes, and a smile sharpened into a weapon. Behind her lurked her son Kyle, shoulders hunched like he wished he were anywhere else. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she trilled. "I'm Brenda, president of the HOA. Just wanted to discuss some concerns." She handed him a notice. "Unauthorized structural modifications. $500 daily fine for dock repairs and exterior painting without approval." Darius read aloud, coffee still bitter in his mouth. "Ma'am, this property's been in my family since '44. It's grandfathered." Her smile tightened. "That old clause doesn't really apply anymore. We've modernized. Can't just have people." The way she emphasized, people made Kyle shift uncomfortably, doing whatever they want. Darius stood firm. "I'll be keeping the cabin, ma'am." For just a moment, her mask slipped, revealing cold ambition. "We'll see about that." Then she pivoted, tugging Kyle along like luggage. The boy glanced back, offering Darius an apologetic half-smile. That evening, Darius sat on his dock as the sun turned the lake to molten gold. His late wife's words echoed in memory. "Some battles choose you, Darius. The question is, are you still willing to fight?" The violation notice crinkled in his hand. He photographed it out of habit, document everything. A lifetime of military bureaucracy had taught him that paperwork was as powerful as any weapon. His elderly neighbor, Martha Kowalski, waved from her deck. She had lived there since the 1960s and carried the warmth of a grandmother. "That Whitmore woman bothering you?" "She stopped by," he admitted. Martha's face hardened. "She's been a plague since she moved in. Drove the Hendersons out last year with her HOA nonsense." That told Darius what he needed to know. This wasn't about dock planks. It was about territory power and who belonged. The very next morning, county inspector arrived, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm here about unpermitted dock modifications," Jim Rodriguez explained. He frowned at the replaced boards. "Honestly, sir, this is just maintenance. I don't see an issue." Across the road, Brenda sat in her white Mercedes, snapping photos with a telephoto lens like some budget spy. "Who filed the complaint?" Darius asked. HOA President Rodriguez sighed. She's called 6 times this week. Dock repairs. Painting even said your American flag was too large. He lowered his voice. Between you and me, I served 2 tours. Is that a Bronze Star? Afghanistan 2009? The inspector's expression softened. My nephew was 82nd Airborne. Thank you for your service. Ma'am ought to do her homework before picking fights, but Brenda wasn't backing down. By afternoon, she was on Facebook, posting in the community group, Safety Alert. Newcomer shows aggressive behavior toward HOA leadership, refuses to follow. Guidelines. Concern for children's well-being. The post got 3 angry emojis and 1 confused comment. Kyle had accidentally liked it before quickly removing the reaction, his digital conscience leaking through. That evening, she escalated. Again, a noise complaint. A deputy arrived, glanced around the peaceful lakefront, and shook his head. Someone reported construction noise. You been hammering? Replace 3 deck boards at noon. It's legal. Sorry to bother you. Darius. Knew then, Brenda was waging war, HOA style, and he had no intention of surrendering. The next morning, Darius put his military instincts to use. He drafted a letter demanding full HOA financial records. It wasn't a random idea. He remembered something from his divorce attorney. HOA boards are legally obligated to provide transparency. If Brenda's harassment was more than personal vendetta, sunlight might expose it. That night, he installed motion-sensitive cameras around his cabin. The quiet whir of lenses adjusting reminded him of base security systems. It was both protection and preparation. 2 days later, Martha arrived, bearing apple pie and a scowl. Your grandfather never let bullies run the lake. Brenda's no different, just dressed nicer. She shared what she knew. Out the Hendersons, a young couple over bogus mailbox violations. Another elderly couple had been targeted for feeding birds. $200 daily fines until they could barely afford groceries. Darius recognized the pattern. This wasn't random harassment. It was a campaign. Target the vulnerable. Isolate them. Overwhelm with bureaucracy until they break. Classic asymmetric warfare suburban edition. The following morning, Kyle jogged past as Darius sipped coffee on his deck. The boy slowed, clearly debating whether to speak. Morning, Kyle. Mr. Mitchell? He shifted awkwardly. Sorry about my mom. She gets intense when she thinks someone's challenging her authority. Not your responsibility, son. Kyle lowered his voice. Since Dad left, she's been different. Talks about some big development deal. Says once she clears certain properties, we'll never have to worry about money again. There it was. The truth beneath the harassment, profit. Brenda wasn't. Just enforcing HOA rules. She was systematically forcing families out so developers could buy cheap. 3 days later, Brenda convened an emergency HOA meeting. The community center smelled of stale coffee as residents shuffled in. Brenda stood at the podium, power suit pressed, smile calculated. Her voice carried the authority of someone used to getting her way. We face serious security threats, she began, clicking through a slideshow. I propose emergency rule changes pre-approval required for all property modifications regardless of grandfathered status. Plus, a $5,000 retroactive fine for unapproved work. The room buzzed nervously. Half the properties had unauthorized sheds, docks, or improvements decades old. Darius raised his hand. Calm, controlled. State law requires 14 days. Notice 4 bylaw changes. This meeting doesn't meet that standard. To postpone? Out of order? Brenda snapped, voice cracking. Mind if I record this? Darius asked, lifting his phone. This states one-party consent. A grizzled Vietnam vet named Tom Bradley spoke up. Good idea. Keep them honest. The board members shifted uncomfortably. For once, Brenda's intimidation faltered. The secretary, normally timid, cleared his throat. Motion postponed. Pending proper notice. Brenda's smile fractured. Fine, but this isn't over. Her eyes locked on Darius with the intensity of someone who had just met her first immovable obstacle. The next day, Darius visited the county records office. Years of military bureaucracy had trained him to find patterns in paperwork. What he discovered confirmed his suspicions. Brenda's finances were crumbling. A $4,200 monthly mortgage, income slipping, debts piling, and then there was Lakeshore Development, LLC, a shell company incorporated 6 months earlier. Brenda's mysterious client. Back home, Martha added more pieces. Brenda had pressured 6 families in the past 2 years, all of them vulnerably military, minorities, all sold below market value. It's all to Lakeshore. It wasn't harassment. It was organized theft. One morning, a private investigator knocked on Darius's door, folder clutched tight. "I'm Pete Garrison. Hired to run a background check on you." "Nothing personal? Who hired you? Client confidentiality?" Pete's eyes flicked toward Brenda's house across the lake. Darius let his medals do the talking. 30 years of service. Bronze Star, Purple Heart. Pete's face paled. "Sir, with respect, I don't think I want this job anymore." Within the hour, Darius saw his car pull into Brenda's driveway. 4 minutes later, it peeled out with screeching tires. From across the lake, he heard Brenda's angry shrieks. Her hired gun had switched sides. That evening, Officer Johnson returned. "Sir, I need to ask about an alleged verbal threat against Mrs. Whitmore." Darius raised an eyebrow. I said, "Good afternoon. She promised to make my life hell until I leave. That's the only threat in that conversation." Johnson hesitated. "Sir, are you the Major General who spoke at the Veterans Day ceremony?" "My brother enlisted because of you." Darius nodded. Johnson exhaled slowly. "For what it's worth, she's filed dozens of complaints against neighbors. Document everything, and sir, thank you." When the officer left, Darius pulled up the state's FOIA request site. Within 10 minutes, he had filed for Brenda's entire police report history. The results floored him. 43 reports in 18 months. Noise complaints, harassment claims, false accusations. Brenda wasn't just a bully. She was abusing law enforcement. 2 nights later, Kyle appeared at Darius's dock, his phone trembling in his hands. "Mr. Mitchell, I recorded something," played the audio. Brenda's voice, sharp and cold. "The military guy is being stubborn, but I'll handle him, same as the others. Harassment, fines, complaints make life miserable until he sells." Another man's voice answered. "Timeline's critical, Mrs. Whitmore. Your commission depends on results." Kyle's eyes filled with shame. She keeps files, spreadsheets, vulnerability factors, military, elderly, minorities, single parents. She's targeting them. Arias felt that old combat calm settle in. This wasn't just harassment. This was conspiracy. Within days, allies gathered at his cabin. Tom Bradley, the Vietnam vet. Eleanor Henderson, forced from her home but clutching every violation letter she'd saved. Martha, armed with casseroles and a church contact list together. They formed a coalition. A resistance. Kyle sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop glowing as he copied his mother's files onto encrypted drives. "She's been doing this for years," he said. 3 other communities. Always the same playbook. Darius coordinated. Like it was a military op. Legal complaints. Evidence catalogs. Witness testimony. By the end of the week, Brenda's empire had cracked spiderwebbing through its foundation, and Darius was ready to deliver the first hammer strike. Brenda sensed the walls closing in. Her response? Escalation. She hired a new lawyer, the kind who advertised on late-night TV with promises to fight dirty. Suddenly, government agencies swarmed at Darius's cabin. Environmental violations, septic system checks, wildlife inspectors. Each one left shaking their heads, muttering about anonymous complaints. But Darius had anticipated it. Each false claim was logged, recorded, and documented with timestamps. Every new complaint only strengthened the case. County Inspector Rodriguez called one afternoon, his voice tight. "Mr. Mitchell, I need to report something. Brenda offered me $2,000 to cite your property for bogus violations. I recorded the whole thing. DA's office has it now. It was felony bribery strike 1. Days later, a thunderstorm rolled in. Darius's security cameras caught Brenda sneaking down to his dock in black clothes, bolt cutters flashing under lightning strikes. She sliced the ropes, setting his dock adrift toward the spillway. By dawn, 4 neighbors had rallied with a borrowed boat to haul it back. The sabotage was clear, clean cuts, caught on camera. Strike 2, but Brenda wasn't finished. Kyle arrived. Pale and trembling, phone clutched like evidence.
She's lost it,
He whispered. Mom hired 2 guys to plant stolen goods in your shed. She's planning to call in an anonymous tip. That night, Darius coordinated with Officer Johnson. At 11:30 p.m., 2 men crept into his shed, stashing a laptop and jewelry box behind paint cans. Every moment was caught on camera. Minutes later, Johnson had them in cuffs. Under questioning, they gave Brenda's name immediately. Strike 3, Brenda's. Desperation turned cruel. She filed in family court to have Kyle removed from her custody, claiming Darius was a dangerous veteran manipulating her son. She even forged Kyle's signature on documents, but Kyle fought back. He took the papers to a school counselor who compared the signature against enrollment forms. The forgery was blatant. Perjury, another felony. Meanwhile, Kyle unearthed financial documents showing Brenda had drained his college fund, invested all into the shady development deal. $80,000 gone, along with hidden mortgage debts. Bank was preparing for closure. Her empire wasn't just collapsing, it was imploding. In one last attempt to control the narrative, Brenda called a press conference on her lawn. She expected to spin herself as the victim of a dangerous neighbor. Instead, federal marshals arrived mid-speech, handcuffs gleaming. Local reporters captured the moment as charges were read aloud: housing discrimination, fraud, conspiracy, bribery, perjury. This is all lies, Brenda shrieked as she was led away. I was protecting property values. A federal prosecutor's calm reply cut her off. Ma'am, systematic housing discrimination isn't community protection. It's a federal crime. The sound of the cuffs clicking shut was the punctuation mark her career and freedom had earned. That evening, the HOA board met for the removal vote. Over 200 residents packed into the small community center, spilling into the parking lot. Some wore justice for veteran shirts. Others carried handwritten signs, no more bullies. Brenda, still in custody, sat pale and broken, flanked by marshals. Kyle sat front row beside Martha, his face determined. Testimony poured out. The Hendersons forced into a trailer after losing their home. The Kowalskis, barely able to buy medicine after Brenda's fines. Veterans, families, elderly neighbors, old sharing stories of harassment and loss. Martha delivered the knockout. This woman is a cancer on our community. Tonight, we cut her out. The vote wasn't close. 127 in favor of removal, 8 against, 3 abstentions. Brenda's reign ended with the thud of ballots in a cardboard box. New leadership formed instantly. Martha as president. Tom Bradley overseeing enforcement. Eleanor Henderson as treasurer. A fresh start. Justice served within weeks. The Department of Justice announced sweeping charges against Brenda and her developer partners. Federal housing discrimination, mail fraud, RICO conspiracy. She faced decades in prison. Kyle testified bravely. His evidence, the recordings, spreadsheets, emails became the backbone of the case. His decision to stand against his mother saved countless future families. In court, Brenda finally broke. She accepted a plea deal, 12 years in federal prison, $4.2 million in restitution. Her designer suits traded for prison blues. Clearwater Lake was reborn. Martha's new HOA scrapped every predatory bylaw. Instead of fines and harassment, they built programs for mediation and community care. Neighbors no longer spied on each other. They shared meals, repaired docks together, and rebuilt trust. The Hendersons returned, buying back a cabin with restitution. Funds. The Kowalskis got assistance for medical costs. Tom Bradley organized weekly veterans breakfasts at the community center, filling the air with laughter and camaraderie. The crown jewel? The Clearwater Veterans Scholarship Fund, funded with Brenda's forfeited assets. The first recipient was Kyle. One crisp autumn morning, Kyle stood on the rebuilt dock, practicing fly casting while Darius sipped coffee. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, excitement in his voice, "I got my West Point acceptance letter." Darius's smile was proud, but calm. "You earned it, son. Not because of who your mother was, but because you had the courage to do what was right." Kyle nodded, determination in his eyes. "I want to study military law, help others fight people like her." The boy who once jogged past with his head down now stood tall, forged by fire into a future leader. 6 months after Brenda's downfall, Darius gave a speech at the annual fish fry fundraiser, using his grandfather's old recipe. Veterans, families, and neighbors filled the air with applause. "My grandfather bought this land in 1944 with his GI Bill," Darius said. "Not to build wealth, but to build community. That dream has survived wars, recessions, and bullies, and it will survive whatever comes next because we protect each other." The ovation echoed across the lake. As the sun set, Darius felt Sarah's presence, her voice in memory. Some battles choose you. This one had chosen him, and together, they had won. Clearwater Lake was finally at peace.